Hey, Night Owls. This is Matt.
And Kyla.
And this is...
Bump in the Night.
Yeah. All right, welcome to another episode of Bump in the Night, episode 5. Pretty blown away by the response. Episode 4 kind of blew up.
Yeah, it did.
So much. People either like aliens or they like anal probing.
Or both. Why not both?
You're kinky.
They're here for the love and saucers, let's be real.
Best title ever.
I know.
Anyway, we wanted to thank you guys for all the support. Like usual, it's blown my mind. This is barely a week and a half old. Freaking so many views, so it's really nice. Don't forget to go check out the Instagram. Email us. We've got an email set up with anything you guys want to listen to or hear about. And then the YouTube channel, I just posted today the reaction videos for the Skinwalkers and the Paris Catacombs. So go give those a look-see and let us know what you think. Tonight's episode is not going to quite be as fun as the last one. This one's kind of somber. Somber? That didn't come out
Somber?
right. There you go. That word. It's very sad. It's about an event that happened in 2011. So, Jesus, 11 years ago?
That was the year I graduated.
Wow. Thanks for making me feel old.
I'm old. Oh gosh.
I graduated in 2009. I'm old as fuck. Anyway, today we're going to talk about not specifically we're going to talk about the Japanese earthquake that hit in 2011, but more specifically we're going to be talking about the ghosts that began showing up after the disaster. And unlike most ghosts, which I would say are probably very creepy and, I mean, terrifying, in my opinion, they would be terrifying. These ghosts are more tragic. There's only one case of them really being terrifying. Most of them, I read them and they just kind of broke my heart a little bit. I need to have you watch it. But I originally saw this story on Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. I probably watched it a couple years ago and it really grabbed me. And I was doing research for this episode on a different subject. And for some reason I kept getting drawn back to this. This was one of the ideas and I kept getting drawn to this and I decided to go with it. I know you have a little bit of knowledge about it. I
do. So I've heard of it before. I've heard of the myths and the legends and the stories that kind of go along with the tsunami ghosts. It seems to be kind of just a well-known thing in, amongst the people of Japan, as far as I know.
Yeah, and when we go into this, something I really found when I did the research was the Japanese have a whole different look on the dead and death than Western culture does. And it's actually, to me, I feel like we've lost something.
It's much more respectful and it's much more
accepting,
but also, I don't know, a deeper understanding, I feel like, than we have.
I feel like, well, I don't know if I should say that because that's going to be bashing on a religion and I don't want to alienate anyone. I feel like certain religions that the Western cultures have are predominantly, made of, they kind of put a dark side to it. There's, you can be really good or it can be really bad. And the Japanese don't seem to have that from what I've looked into. In the documentary, one of the priests, he's a Buddhist priest, talks about that the way they look at the dead is a super popular thing for doors are these really thin, kind of paper doors that you can basically see through. They're literally just there for like protection or just some blocking. And the way he described it was the Japanese believe that when you die, it's essentially opening that slider, and the person who dies steps through, and then the slider closes. But those who are still on the living side are still able to see through and interact. Yeah, you're looking up what it's called. Shoji. There you go. They're essentially able to. The living are still able to look through and interact and see the dead. It's not. They're not gone. They're just in a different area, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that.
There's so many things in just the day-to-day life that pays homage to the dead, even down to how they have their chopsticks when they're eating. Like the rule of thumb, like you don't put your chopsticks straight up and down in a bowl of rice.
Didn't know that.
You do not do that. Because that's essentially an offering to the people that have passed. And so if you do that, I mean, it's essentially, it's very rude for food that was meant for you to do that. So, just everything is based around showing the utmost respect for those who have passed.
Well, and that's something you see a lot with the Japanese culture. And this is, you and I are both in love with Japanese everything.
Yes.
Food, culture, legends, lore, Godzilla.
Oh my gosh. There's only so much that we as white folk can really say about the Japanese culture. But yeah. I mean,
it's just I have a lot of respect for them. Like, even in the videos that I watched on the tsunami, every time they pulled a body out and there was a body bag, all of the workers, before they would carry the body off to be with the others, they would all bow to it. It was utmost respect. They would bow to it, and then they would lift the person up and take them over there.
Considering how many deaths there were,
20,000 people.
The tsunamis, like, to take the time to give their individual respect to every single person they pulled out is just, I don't know, it's amazing.
Well, and sadly, one of the side effects of the tsunami was the crematoriums were wiped out. It is customary in Japan to cremate your loved ones, not to bury them. And sadly, there were so many dead, and the crematoriums were gone. They had to bury them. And so they essentially buried them in not a mass grave. I don't want to say a mass grave. It's not just piles of bodies. They had coffins and all that, and they were given what we as Westerners would see as a respectable funeral. Mm-hmm. Like, they buried them, had flowers in them, loved ones got to come and say goodbye. But then once the crematoriums got back up and running, they dug the bodies back up and cremated them at that point.
Good.
But that's where a lot of these ghost stories come from, is they worry that when they were not properly, in the Japanese views, properly cremated, that some of these ghosts were coming up. Also, the fact that
could be
nearly 20,000 people died in this. It was 19,000 and something. There were, from what I saw, was anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 people that their bodies were never found.
Mm.
So
those ones could be the ghosts that we're seeing too, since their bodies weren't found, they're lost.
Yeah. So this episode, like I said, is not going to be as fun. I don't think there's going to be a lot of joking around, because we both, I mean, this is a very recent tragedy, and we both want to be respectful of the dead and of the Japanese people. So,
but it's also interesting.
It's super
to hear
interesting.
About, and the stories are amazing.
So the taxi drivers are my favorite part of it. So anyway, we're going to dive into it to begin. So on Friday, March 11th, 2011, so geez, the 11th anniversary literally just happened.
Yeah, it did.
A massive 9.0 magnitude earthquake happened off the northern coast of Japan. And following that, a massive tsunami struck. The damage was unreal. People were not prepared for it. Nearly 20,000 people were killed that day, and they estimate around $199 billion in damages occurred.
Oh, wow.
That number is just ridiculous. But like we talked about, a supernatural side effect of the natural disaster began to show itself. Ghosts of the victims lost to the massive wave began to show up very soon afterwards, and we're talking a month afterwards people started seeing this. It seemed like a lot of them were lost souls who couldn't seem to understand that they were dead. A lot of them that people saw, they didn't know they were dead. Some of them did. But anyway, like I said, at about 2:46 p.m., 45 miles off the Tohoku, the coast of Tohoku, 15 miles below the surface of the ocean, that's where the earthquake hit. The actual shaking itself on Japan lasted for about 6 minutes, which a 9.0 earthquake, that is no joke.
Yeah.
That's the largest in Japanese history right now. I think before that, if I remember right, it was like an 8.7 was the highest one before that. And 9.0, that is, being a Californian, I have experienced a few earthquakes and nothing on 9 I mean, maybe 2, 3 at the most.
Oh, wow.
Nothing crazy. Enough to, I mean, I've slept through earthquakes. My mom, I still remember a friend was staying the night and an earthquake hit. And my buddy and I got woken up not from the earthquake, but from my mother frantically running in there to make sure we were okay. And we're like, what the hell are you doing? Go away, we were sleeping. And she's like, oh, okay. And just like wandered.
Oh, wow.
Californians. Anyway, so a lot of people, Japan has a very good early warning system. So most people got a minute or so warning before the earthquake actually hit. So the biggest thing, and this saved a lot of lives, was, Japan has those crazy fast trains. Mm-hmm. They were able to stop them so that they didn't derail and cause unimaginable damage. Another one is there's a ton of factories in Japan, and they were able to warn these people for them to get to safety away from all of that big industrial stuff. So the highest point I saw, the waves reached 128 feet. So the massive wave is not, that hits the land was not 128 feet, but the surge that was out in the ocean that reached 128 feet.
Jeez.
Which is unreal. And that slammed into the coastline. The surge traveled 6 miles inland. Now that doesn't seem like much, but that's a wave traveling over buildings and hills and farmland and homes and things. 6 miles. And overall, the entire coast was 217 square miles of Japan was flooded when that wave came in. I mean, these waves were so strong that there are reports, and obviously they found it, of 3-story buildings just being demolished, just smashing them to hell. And the total number of lives lost was 19,747 in one day. Not even one day, in hours.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be hard. I apologize, this pronunciation. But to make matters even worse, the Fukushima
Daiichi.
You say it.
Fukushima Daiichi?
Okay. Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant's cooling systems were damaged and failed, which caused a nuclear meltdown.
Oh, no.
So they had no power. Not only that, the wave washed radioactive waste out. They found after this radioactive material near the coasts of Canada and California.
Wow.
This product over there. And I think it was Dark Tourists. They were doing a tour in Japan. And they have radioactive soil separated from the people and just these giant, because they don't know what to do with it. They have to just wait for it to become less radioactive.
Yeah. I mean, what else do you do with it?
And let's just add to it, it also began to snow ridiculously hard. it was heartbreaking watching Unsolved Mysteries, because you see just this wave come in, wipe the city out, and then these people are trying to recover. They have no power, and then it fucking starts to snow, and not just a little bit. It was a lot of snow. So how many people did they lose just to hypothermia?
Mm-hmm.
They're soaking wet from this wave, and then it freaking freezes.
And no power to
And
heat.
no power.
Yeah.
Because it says even the generators couldn't even keep the nuclear power plant going. It wiped them all out. So, I mean, it was just the perfect storm, essentially. So soon after all of this was over, reports began to trickle in of strange occurrences. People began to report ghosts of those lost to the tsunami. It mostly began at first with just little people seeing people that they knew had died lining up at demolished grocery stores or in the refugees camp. And this is where the Japanese and like us Americans are very different. If Americans started reporting that they were seeing dead people all over, it would cause like mass hysteria.
Yeah.
Like it would freak us out. From pretty much all of the stories I saw, yeah, people were... Yeah, your dog chewed on my wire. Most of the people that the stories that I read and heard and stuff, they don't panic. It's just... A lot of them would just go up and tell these people they're dead. They were trying to comfort them.
Mm-hmm.
But they also began to see people that in places that they frequently visited when they were alive. They would just see glimpses of them. And these were people they knew were dead. Neighbors, friends, relatives, things like that. But this one's kind of tragic is there were multiple reports of seeing groups of these people frantically running inland from an invisible wave. And they're essentially just repeating their moment of death. So these ghosts are kind of stuck in a loop. And these sightings, I do believe, have died down, but up to 2.5 years after the tsunami, there were reports of ghosts. I don't think they're as frequent anymore. Hopefully, these people are now at rest. We can hope. But one of the more well-documented instances of a ghost was that of an elderly woman from... Onagawa, you're good at this stuff. See, she's obsessed with... You worked at a...
I mean, I could be still saying it wrong.
You could.
I don't know. I don't know.
But anyway, this woman, people knew her, and sadly she was killed in the disaster. But her ghost had an interesting habit of showing up at the refugee camps for a cup of tea. She would always ask for a cup of tea. And they would give it to her, and those who saw her... They couldn't tell her that she had died. They left her. And as suddenly as she appeared, if she got tea or something, she would disappear. And this is a very common thing throughout it, and this part creeps me out. Where she would be sitting, her ghost would be sitting when she would disappear, the seat would be damp with seawater. And that adds just a creep factor to me, because I'm hoping this woman was found, her body was found, but like potentially she could be one of those 2,500, 3,000 that were not found and were washed into the ocean, and that's why. And this is a very common occurrence. Mm-hmm. And it's sad, and it's terrifying. That part of it adds a realness to it that I don't know why it creeps me out. But this is one of my favorite parts. A huge group that were very affected by the ghosts were the taxi drivers of the areas. One taxi driver reported picking up a young woman who asked to be taken to a train station that the driver knew had been just erased from the wave, like it was no longer there. And when he told her that it was no longer there, she looked confused. And then she looked directly at him and calmly asked, "Have I died?" And before he could answer, she literally dematerialized in front of his face. And I don't know about you, that would freak me out. And it's heartbreaking.
I mean, we can only hope that maybe she dematerialized because she realized that she was dead and accepted it and was able to move on.
We can hope so, but that one hits me right in the heart. All of these do. All of these ghosts are so...
It's sad.
It's horrible, but that wasn't the only one. Many other drivers reported similar instances. In some cases, they would drive the person to the location only to find the home was no longer there. And so this is what, again, makes me sad, is I feel like a lot of these people are just trying to get home. And something that the priest in the show I watched, Unsolved Mysteries, mentioned, or I don't think it was the priest, it was one of the survivors, is she had actually traveled to where her house used to be. The landscape is completely changed. That wave came in and wiped it. There was nothing there. It was just an empty field now. Because this wave came in and wiped it out. So you got to think about it. If these ghosts are trying to get home, the landscape doesn't look like it did before. So it adds even more confusion.
Yeah.
Which is even sadder because they're trying to... this one made me sad, this whole thing, but I was captivated by it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, they would drive the person to the location, only find that the home or building was no longer there. And when they would turn around to talk to the passenger, sometimes, most of the time, they would find that the person had disappeared. And again, in some cases, the seats were damp. But this right here shows what we talked about with the Japanese and death. Is in Unsolved Mysteries, one of the things they said was a lot of these taxi drivers didn't know that they picked up a ghost, but a lot of them, they still they would drive this person there to the house. They had a fare going that had to be paid. And what they discovered was these taxi drivers were paying for the dead. They were honoring the dead by paying to take them home. Which, I don't know, America, we need to wake up and be better about the dead, because that's just touching. You look like you're about to cry, babe.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna do this right now.
One driver even said, "It's not strange to see a ghost here. If I encounter a ghost again, I will accept it as my passenger." And that's just, I don't know, that's so touching. Mm-hmm. And they've got so much honor to be willing to pay for someone they know is dead. It's out of their pocket. And they would just, it was, the priest said he talked to many taxi drivers that they did it. Mm-hmm. Even if it would put them behind, they were honoring those who had lost their lives. This one, I don't know how I would react. I would very much want to think I would help, but also it's terrifying. In some cases, men and women would report people coming to their doors at night, and they would knock on the door, and when they went there would be a man or a woman or a child standing there, completely drenched in water. They would look scared or sad, and all they wanted and all they would ask for is for some dry clothes. And what blows my mind is in the documentary, these people without hesitation would go and get this person some dry clothes. But a lot of times when they would come back with the clothes, all they would find is a puddle of seawater on their doorstep. I want to think that I would invite people in, but the soaking wet, although in Oregon it could have been raining, but that, I don't know, something about that one gives me chills, but also makes me feel good at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like these people are so willing to just drop and help people. But it breaks my heart because these ghosts they just want to dry clothes. They just wanted to, I mean, I work out in the weather all the time and I come home and I'm damp. I'm not like, these people were soaking wet. And the first thing I want to do is get into warm, dry clothes. And these people are scared, sad, and soaking wet. They can't get home. And all they want to do is put on some warm clothes. I'm sorry, I'm not... It's just, I said this one was not going to be a fun one, and it's a captivating story, but it's also heartbreaking. And it's going to get worse.
Great.
One woman reported, and she was in the documentary, encountering a group of ghosts. She knew they were ghosts. So, little backstory on this woman. She has said that from a very young age, she would see... I'm sorry.
No, I'm. It's fine. I'm crying. It's fine.
My wife has a leaking issue.
I leak.
She gets happy, she cries. She gets mad, she cries. She gets hungry, she cries. Do you need?
Yeah.
I love her, but she's leaky.
I'm leaking.
So this woman has, from a young age, she said that she has seen spirits, and she would talk to them sometimes, try and help them move on. She just assumed that everybody could see them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until she was older that she realized not everybody could. And so she really started seeing these ghosts on a regular basis. Sorry, love.
I'm fine. It's fine. I'm fine.
But anyway, she knew ghosts from regular people, and so she rolled up to this group of men. And they looked very confused and didn't know what was going on and were asking for a ride. And she rolled down her window and she gently explained to them that they had died in the tsunami and that they needed to move on. And I'm hoping, because they just disappear at that point, and I'm hoping that by her letting them know that they moved on to whatever comes next. But man, could you imagine being a sensitive after...
Yeah.
A disaster like that? Like, it makes me wonder, like, these crazy World Trade Centers. I wonder if afterwards, like, these people that are sensitive, if they could pick up on that energy. Or, I just use World Trade Center because that's what popped in my head, but, like, Katrina, tons of people died.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at this. Apparently, I only know American disasters.
Because that's all that America teaches us.
Well, that's fair.
We're not very diversely taught
Japan
about the world.
again. Think about Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the nuclear bombs. God, that's one I need to look into. I wonder if there were spirits after that. I'll have to look into that.
The crazy thing too is there's so many sightings and experiences with the tsunamis. But like, I don't know. I'm having issues like articulating it. Like, why is this event one that we're seeing or they're seeing so many spirits from, and we don't, like you said, the World Trade Center or all these other disasters, like, why aren't we seeing this globally, not just in Japan?
So I have I've read some theories on this, and a big one is the northern part of Japan that got hit the hardest. I should have written down the province name. I totally failed on that one. Is
it just their beliefs?
So they
tie them close to it?
So Japan, the main part of Japan, modernized faster than this northern part of Japan did. So they hold on.
Very
spiritual. They're very spiritual. They're very in tune with that, and that area is not as modern. Now it's very modern still, but they're traditional, and they
maybe it's just their way of life and their connections keep them closer to
that 100% could be it.
Then that makes sense.
So most of those were very sad stories. This is one of the few. These next two are one of the few that would be truly terrifying, because essentially these people who obviously are sensitives were essentially possessed by the spirits. And not just one spirit. They were possessed by all of these a bunch of souls that were lost and were trying to the way I looked at it, and you guys can do your own opinion, is they were trying to use these people as a mouthpiece. And I'll explain. So, like I said, tales of people being possessed. One man, we're going to call him Takashi Ono. This is not his real name. He wanted to stay anonymous, but this is what. He was one of these people. He was lucky enough to live in an area not hit by the wave. He lived 30 miles inland, so he didn't get hit by it. But his family and him drove to the area affected. From some stories said that it was to help, others were to just go and look and see. Shortly after he arrived, the first signs of unrest began. The first impulse was he wanted to call everyone he knew and to ask if they were okay, which I feel like that's just a normal impulse. I would want to do the same thing, but I mean, if he lived in a smaller village and knew everyone there, he would probably already know that. But this is where it got weird. He was compelled to get on all fours, and he started licking all of the furniture around him, writhing and snarling. And he began shouting, "You must die, you must die, everyone must die, everyone must die and be lost." He then ran outside and began rolling in the mud, and then started pointing, "There, over there, they're all over there, look, I'm coming to you, I'm coming over to that side." The first part makes me think not so much spirit, but something nastier.
No.
Or what, do you think it's a resentful spirit that they died and...
Okay, well, first off, if you were just completely going about your normal business and everything was great, and then just...
fucking wave.
Boom, wave dead, you would be so confused, traumatized. I mean, that would screw with anybody's head.
Angry
However,
spirit.
Now, this sounds really weird, and this is very, out there. The way that he's acting, though, kind of makes me think of an animal. A pet or a dog.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it's literally impossible that there wasn't animals caught in this.
Oh, no, animals were wiped out.
Just everything, but...
Well, hold on, because it gets worse.
Okay.
His wife finally dragged him inside, where he continued to writhe and rant until around, she said, 5 a.m., where he said it felt as if something was on top of his chest. And then he fell asleep.
Yeah, the animal.
Here's the thing. He has no memory of that. He woke up the next morning, and his wife literally came to him and said, "I want a fucking divorce."
Oh, shit.
I'm not joking.
What?
She came to him and went, "I want a divorce. You were crazy." And he's like, "What the fuck?"
Oh my gosh.
And he had no idea. They didn't get a divorce. But the following night, this is really creepy. He claimed that he could see shadowy figures, which he knew were victims of the tsunami, covered in mud, just walking past the front of his house. He said it was like watching an old film. It was foggy, and they were kind of like, you know how old films, they would glitch?
Mm-hmm.
These people would glitch like that. And they were just walking in front of his house. Mentally, part of me goes, the photographer in me, that picture would be incredible.
If you can't even capture it.
True.
Some people think that you can't capture spirits on camera. Others think that that's one of the only ways to capture spirits.
Would you be scared?
No.
You're braver than me. I'd be scared.
I have a very different outlook on spirits and ghosts than you do.
I think it would be eerie.
For sure.
And creepy as hell.
But I also, again, and I'm repeating myself to you, this is something that I have said many, many times. it's natural human instinct. If something is different and we don't understand it, whether it be spirits, ghosts, aliens, whatever, love and saucers, if we don't understand it, we immediately fear it.
Yeah.
We're prone to just, oh no, that's scary, I don't know what that is. But that's not always the case. Just because something is different and we don't understand it doesn't mean that it's mean, malicious, or bad.
So, this guy kind of brought it on himself, to be honest with you. So the night after he saw the shadowy figures, those fits that happened the first night started up again.
Mm-hmm.
So his wife finally brought him to a Buddhist priest named Teo Kaneda.
Kaneda?
I'm trying to remember if that's how they pronounce it on the thing. Teno Kaneda, for an exorcism. So he performed the exorcism, and luckily afterwards, Ono said that he felt the presence that was in him that was causing this leave his body. And they asked Kaneda if he understood why, and he talked with Ono and his family more, and Ono admitted this to him. He said, Ono told me that he had walked along the beach in the devastated area, eating an ice cream. He even put up a sign in the car, in the windshield, saying disaster relief so that no one would stop him.
Wait.
Yeah, he drove his car up to the beach and was walking along so people wouldn't stop him. He put up a freaking sign that said disaster relief. So he was faking it just so he could do that. The priest continued on and said he went there flippantly without giving any thought at all. And he told him, you fool, if you go to a place where many people have died, you must go with a feeling of respect. That's common sense. You have suffered a kind of punishment for what you did. Something got a hold of you, perhaps the dead who cannot accept yet that they are dead. They have been trying to express their regret and their resentment through you. So it was almost like a punishment. He was disrespectful. And so they kind of taught him a lesson. Which is scary. I don't know what's more scary, being possessed by a bunch of dead people or a demon.
I mean, a demon would be scarier.
They both would be scary. Why are you rolling your eyes at me? It would be scary. I don't want to get possessed. So another woman had a similar experience, and this one might make you cry again.
God damn it. Okay, let's do this.
A woman named Rumiko experienced a similar incident. She said she felt like her body was being invaded by spirits. Kaneda, same priest, performed an exorcism for her as well. He stated that he banished 25 spirits from her body. 25? That's a lot of people in there. I can only think, I have enough room for my brain and thoughts. I don't have room, I barely have room for that. I can barely breathe and walk at the same time, let alone deal with 25 other spirits in my body. So one of these turned out to be the spirit of a middle-aged man who wanted to know where his daughter Kaori was. He claimed that he had seen her by the sea during the earthquake, but he himself had been swept away by the relentless wave. So he was looking for his daughter and he got hit. This particular spirit was described as being very agitated and intense. And when Kaneda asked him where he was, the ghost replied, you ready? That he was at the bottom of the sea, and it was very cold there.
So he knew where he was, but he was refusing to move on because he was looking for his daughter.
Yep. When Kaneda instructed the spirit to come up towards the light, it is said to have replied, but the light is so small, there are bodies all around me, and I can't reach it. And who are you anyway? Who are you to lead me to the world of light? That's... I told you, that one's rough. I don't want to put my mind where this spirit is, but it's heartbreaking because this man was looking for his daughter. It is a parent's instinct to do everything he can to find his child. and sadly he lost his life because of it. And then for a spirit to know that he's down at the bottom of the ocean and that it's cold and that there's other bodies of those who have died with him, I'm hoping that the exorcism made him at peace. I hope for his sake that his daughter survived. I couldn't find anywhere whether she had survived or not, or if she hadn't, that when he was released that he was reunited with her. But yeah, that one I read and I got me.
Yeah.
But after several hours of several hours of conversing with the stubborn ghost, it was finally convinced to leave this world behind and move on. I forgot. I started saying I hoped it had moved on, and I hope it actually did. That's my thing.
Yeah.
The guy's a Buddhist priest. I'm pretty sure he's able to open those doors and shut them and all that fun stuff to help people. But other ghosts alleged to have inhabited the poor Rumiko were a man who had committed suicide after learning that his 2 daughters had died in the tsunami. Another who wanted to join his dead relatives but couldn't find his way because everything had been washed away. And that's what I was talking about earlier, is all these people, all these ghosts that thought they knew the land and then it's just so utterly changed.
Yeah.
Are lost. And so that I think you asked earlier why we're seeing this here, and I think it's, I'm just going to use American disasters as an example. The World Trade Centers crashed, but the city itself stayed the same.
Yeah.
Katrina.
It's still relatively the same, though.
Katrina wiped out a lot.
Yeah, but the landscape was the same.
I would have to look into that. I'd be curious to see if there were any Katrina ghosts. I'm sure there are.
Maybe.
We should have talked about this earlier. I believe in ghosts. I believe in spirits. I think you and I have a very different concept of what they are. I think you and I went into this before, and I don't. Now I'm brain farting. Anyway, hold on. Let me finish this, and then we can go into that.
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't find his relatives because they had been washed away. The land had been washed away. And then there was an old man who all he wanted to do was communicate with his wife who had survived from the disaster. And then also, sadly, there were some children that were trapped within her. And all of these ones that I shared were pretty much the big ghost stories. I couldn't find a whole lot more. I think it's one of those things that they might not want to talk about a ton.
Yeah.
Out of respect. So, yeah. I made my wife cry. Twice on a podcast, so,
I'm leaky.
This one just, I don't know, something was drawing me to it. Like I said, in the last episode, I was leaning towards a serial killer, and I don't even remember how this one came up again. And
it's just so interesting to
hear
about. It's devastating and sad, but that's kind of what makes it a little bit more interesting, is just how it just pulls at your heartstrings. And whether or not you truly believe in spirits or not, hearing some of these stories can still just hit you. It
does. It just right in the chest.
Yeah.
It's
a very emotional episode.
She and I want to go to Japan very badly.
Yes.
It's one of our bucket lists. Once our son is gone and gone. We're getting rid of him. He's 18. We're getting him out. Once he's grown and 18 at that point, we are definitely going to do some traveling, and Japan is on our list. It's
honestly,
at the top of the list.
It'll probably be the first place we go.
And after reading this, I would like to go and visit the areas there.
Yeah.
And honestly, they've got one of the villages that was hit hard. They lost 6,000 people in that one village. They've got a memorial that looks over the ocean, and I would very much like to go there and just, I didn't even know these people, but just pay my respects.
Well, I mean, it's something that has happened within our lifetime too,
Yeah.
and so it's something that it's not just stories and myths and bump in the night legends. It's something that happened in our lifetime that
We remember.
And
I would like to go and pay my respects.
that would be amazing.
We definitely, when we go, and there will be an episode on this, we're gonna go check out the Suicide Forest.
I was just about to bring that up as well. Another amazing story based from Japan that, I mean, I wouldn't even mind taking the lead on because of how passionate I am about it. Like, I think it's super cool. Is the Suicide Forest, and that will be an episode in and of itself, and it's amazing. Also, a place that I would like to visit while in Japan.
There's just everything about Japan. We like food, Pokemon Center,
their culture,
the culture.
I just love how
the Godzilla Hotel.
Oh my gosh, Tokyo Disneyland.
Yeah. Another episode that she brought up that I had not thought about, but it's one of my favorite legends, is the Slipmouth Woman. We'll definitely do that. But anyway, I'm sorry this one wasn't more funny and laughable, but it's a story that needs to be told.
Well, not every episode is going to be either. Some of them are going to be scary, some of them are going to be serious, some of them are going to be absolutely hilarious. And this was just a tearjerker. This was a sad, true event that has some supernatural twists to it that we just had to go into.
Yeah. And to our Japanese listeners, because we actually have some people in Japan listening.
We love you. You're our favorites.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Don't tell everybody else.
And just, in 2011, I was 19.
You just had a baby.
Oh, Jesus, I did.
That's when...
No, he wasn't born yet.
At that time?
March.
But he was almost due.
Almost born. I wish I had been more aware, because I would have loved to have donated to help.
Mm-hmm. I was a senior in high school.
Yeah, when you become an adult, it different perspective.
Yeah.
So.
For sure.
Anyway, we won't ramble anymore. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. I don't know what I'm going to do next week. Probably the serial killer that I was looking at for this week. Or I guess Monday is our next episode. So
let me know if I was the only one who cried, or if you cried as well, because I cried. So,
I hope you guys keep listening. Yeah. And next episode will be out on Monday.
We'll see you then.
See you guys.
Bye.